Pumpkin is so versatile, and I'm going to show you a way to stuff it with a delicious stuffing of couscous and olive dip. So first up, we need to prepare our couscous. Now in this pot, I've got some vegetable stock. I'm going to keep this 100% vegetarian. To this, we'll add a little bit of chili, so just some chili powder, along with some garlic. We just want to soften that garlic so it's got a sweeter flavour. While that's warming through, let's pop some couscous into a bowl. So 1/3 of a cup of instant couscous, that can go in, along with a small pinch of salt, and then we'll add our stock. So this is a really flavoursome stock. I'm only going to use 1/3 of a cup. So we'll just measure that out, grabbing some of that garlic. I'll just pour a bit in there. And then we'll pour that hot stock over our couscous. Now we need to cover this so it swells up. So cling film over the top. All right, let's pop that to one side and get onto the pumpkin. I've got one whole butternut pumpkin, and we need to hollow it out so all of that delicious dip and couscous can fit in there. So my technique is pretty simple. We take the seeds out and then grab a small knife and very carefully just cut around it, leaving that 2 centimetre border. So just cut around it, being very careful. And then what I like to do is a bit of a crisscross pattern. So we'll start one way, and then the other way, and then making little squares. And this is just going to make it much easier to scrape out that flesh. Now, I'm not actually using much of this flesh at all, but it doesn't go in the bin. Keep this, you can freeze it if you like, or you can use it straight away to make a delicious soup. Pick at it just to remove all of that flesh. I've got a bowl here of the other flesh, and we'll just pop that in there, and we'll continue the process until we've hollowed out 2 sides. All right, pumpkins have been hollowed out, and let's get on to the rest of the filling. So a little bit of cavolo nero. I love this green, full of flavour. It's so good for you too. And I just want to finely chop it. If you can't get cavolo nero, of course you can just use some kale or some spinach. Any dark leafy green is what we're after in this recipe. So I want a good handful that's been finely shredded. And we're going to add that raw into our swelled couscous. This has absorbed all of that aromatic vegetable stock, and just using a fork, we'll just separate all the grains. Once those grains have separated, we can add our cavolo nero. We want some texture in here, so I love the addition of some flaked almonds. I've just toasted them off. And some sweetness, and I'll get the sweetness from 1 pomegranate. This is totally optional if you can't find pomegranates. I always love to give you some different options. Cranberries, dry cranberries are a lovely addition. Even some sultanas or some raisins. We're just wanting that pop of sweetness. And this is the best way to get pomegranates out. Just use the back of a heavy spoon in your hand. Don't wear white because it can spray and it's hard to get pomegranate stains out. Okay. Looking good. And now for our olive dip. I love this dip because it's got real big chunks of green olive. It's also gluten-free and dairy-free, so it's delicious just as is, but it's also fantastic to be used as a filler for stuffed vegetables like this. There's loads of flavour in it. So I'm going to use a whole tub of this because it's going to bind everything together. Fantastic. And we'll just give everything a really good stir. All right, that's looking good. The last thing I want to add to this is just a small amount of that pumpkin filling. Now, you only need a little bit, and what I like to do is just chop it so it's super fine. So about, I'd say 2/3 of a cup. Grab a knife and just run through it a few times. Happy with that. And a final mix through our couscous. All right, the filling is done. Let's get stuffing. So we'll grab our 2 halves, and we're just going to use this spoon to carefully add this to the cavity. Now you want it to be quite compact, so just use your spoon to press that mixture into the pumpkin. You can see how much stuffing you can fit into this after you've really hollowed it out properly. And you want it to be sticky just like that, because we need to glue the 2 halves together. So we'll pop that one and that one together, squish it together, That's looking good, and we've reformed the pumpkin. Now we'll just pop that to one side, just so it sits there while we prepare our tray. We need to tie this with some twine so it cooks nicely in the oven. So just line kitchen twine onto the tray, 3 or 4 pieces. Nice long pieces for this, so it's easy to tie up. Last one can go there. Spread it out so it's quite even. We'll place that on top and we'll start tying. So I like to do a double knot, 1, 2, and by doing that, it fastens quite easily, and then we'll do another one. Perfect. I'm going to continue doing this, and then we'll just drizzle a little oil and some salt over the whole pumpkin. It then goes in the oven, and I'll cook it at 190 degrees for about 40 minutes or until that pumpkin is tender. This is going to be so good. The roasted stuffed pumpkin is out of the oven. You can see it's held its shape nicely, and this twine has done its job, so we'll just cut it off. And this is one of those dramatic dishes where you can slice it and take it to the table, or you can portion it out into medallions, which is what I'm going to do. And this can be served hot or cold. I'm serving mine warm on a little bed of salad. So we're just going to slice this. I'll take the tail end off, little chef's treats there, pop that to the side, have a look at the inside of this. See how that stuffing is just sticking nicely. It's perfect. That's what we're after. And that's because of that lovely dip that we added, because it acted like the glue. I'm going to slice a generous medallion of this. Very carefully slice. I want to hold its shape. And then this goes onto a bed of rocket. Oh, looks so good. And just because I'm going to add another dollop of this olive dip as a sauce. So we'll just open that up, grab a spoon, and then we'll add a generous spoonful of that just to one side. Let that sort of cascade down if you like. A drizzle of extra virgin olive oil to tie it all together, and a small pinch of salt. And while I'm at it, some freshly cracked pepper. That is a fantastic, hearty vegetarian dish. I love this because you don't feel like you're missing out on meat whatsoever. You've got a stuffed pumpkin, loads of flavour in that stuffing, and then that extra little dollop of green olive dip, just perfect.